And on the 20th build he made, he said, "Let there be dexterity." And there was, and it was good. So the name of the game today is burst damage. We're going to be doing big burst damage with two different tools that we have with this build. This is a level 175 build. It's 175 because I couldn't be asked to go to 200, and I don't need any more stat points in this build anyways. So I'll show you the stats at the end of the video, as per usual, but we'll do the invasions first. So this build uses the Sword of Night, which is a really awesome weapon art. You just saw it there. It's called the Witching Hour Slash. This thing can be charged to do more damage, but you actually don't want to charge it, because if you do it uncharged, you can do a follow-up heavy attack, and that actually gives you a true combo. So if you land the last part of that uncharged weapon art, it's going to lead into a free heavy attack. So the heavy attack on this weapon is a little double slash, so it's a 5-hit combo technically in total, and it does big damage, especially if you build around it correctly. So building around it correctly looks like Shard of Alexander, Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, and Millicent's Prosthesis. Now you don't have to go full tilt with it. Either way, it's going to do a ton of damage, but it's really nice. So that's one way that we're able to do huge burst damage on this weapon. Now the weapon actually does a little bit of bleed damage as well. So if you get a couple of hits in before you manage to do that whole combo, you might proc a bleed, and in that case, you're just going to delete somebody with that combo. Now the other way that we do a lot of burst damage, and you've already seen it here, is through parrying. Now I don't think I used the Dagger Talisman for all of these clips, but for some of them I did. You can see right here I'm using the Furled Fingers Trick Mirror. I was also using the one that makes you invisible when you crouch from a certain distance away. I was trying to do some sneaky assassin kind of shenanigans, but it didn't really work out for me too well. It just kind of amounted to like shooting people with the jar cannon, and I don't know, that's fun a couple of times, but it gets a little bit boring. The other thing you can do is kind of lead people into enemies with polter stones and stuff, but I just didn't have the patience for that. So you'll see later on, my guy's gonna, well actually it's a girl character, Edna is her name. She's gonna turn red, actually she's red now, because I took those talismans off, and I thought, you know, they're not doing anything for me, so probably better to put on, you know, Dagger Talisman, Shard of Alexander, whatever, you know, the other talismans that I mentioned, extra health, any of that stuff. So yeah, we do some parrying. That's the other way that we're able to do a lot of burst damage here. You know, as an invader, you all know, you're usually fighting 2 if not 3 people at once, so it really pays to be able to take someone out quickly. So there was the true combo at work that you just saw. It was the uncharged Witching Hour Slash right into the uncharged heavy attack. So that's always going to be a true combo, and big damage there. Now you'll see a case right here where being able to do that big burst damage actually saves us. So the situation is that the host and his friend are coming up to that area where you fight the Baleful Shadow, which is the guy who's disguised as Blythe, right before you get to the Lake of Rot area. So they don't want to go forward because they know he's there, he's going to pop up, and then we're going to be able to fight them together. That's going to be difficult for them, right? He's kind of like a second invader, but with much more health, and who does really big damage, albeit his AI is like very easy to cheese with backstabs, but still, they don't want to, you know, have him come out, right? But fighting in this tunnel is really tough for me. There's no enemies here. He's got that weapon art with the Ruins Greatsword, which takes up a ton of space. It can be a little bit tricky to dodge around sometimes. I think this guy had pretty good connection, but if they don't have good connection, that weapon art can be a little bit of a nightmare in an area like this when you actually have to dodge through it. It can be kind of tough. We're kind of letting him waste his FP there. As an invader, you really have to be patient, and one of the times that pays off is just letting people absolutely waste their FP, especially if they have like a dragon spell or something like that, because those things absolutely hemorrhage FP. And I don't know, I've been in some cases where people just keep spamming the dragon attack when it comes around a corner, and you get into this situation where you're purposely doing it to bait them into it, because you know it's just draining them the entire time. They've probably got nothing else up their sleeve, really. So This guy's spell is like hitting the walls and stuff. It's very easy to avoid. I know that weaponar uses quite a bit of FP as well, but he looks like he might be, really high level. I'm at 175, so I'm probably invading at like 200 or 210 or maybe a bit more. That's probably what the host is. But this Phantom, he could be 300 or something like that. And that means his mind could be very high. Now, his mind might be really high, but I don't know if he uses his mind a lot because he doesn't know that we have the iframes there, and he doesn't seem to know that we can parry the one-handed Colossal Sword. After you see me parry your friend, you've got to two-hand that sword. So just a piece of advice out there to you. You can parry one-handed Colossal Swords. They're very slow. You can parry it on reaction, so it's something to kind of fish for. And if you're the one using the Colossal Sword and you see someone using a shield, especially a small shield, just know that you're going to have to watch for that parry. So try to kind of mix up your attacks a little bit, charge your attacks a little bit, maybe not all the way, just anything you could do to change up the timing. Easier said than done, I know, but as someone who's on the other end of it, parries a lot of people, that's the kind of stuff that'll throw me off, so that's what I'd recommend to you if you get parried a lot. Now, if you like parrying, I would suggest kind of learning the timing of PvP parrying, which is a little bit different, because it's very satisfying, just like it is in PvE. Very satisfying to parry a boss, very satisfying to parry another person. We actually absolutely get yeeted there with that shield, which does no damage. But it's okay. As my great-grandmother used to say, though the phantoms may yeet us, they will not defeat us. She used to say that all the time. So there we go. She was right. We managed to take him down. Then we get a one-on-one with the host here. And this is where parrying really comes in handy, because you can actually set up your parries. The reason that I say parrying in PvP is a little bit different than parrying in PvE is because there's a little bit of latency, right? It's tougher to kind of parry on reaction because, let's take this Moonveil for instance. The weapon art on it, it's called Transient Moonlight. It comes out very quick. He can also send it out vertically or horizontally, so he can kind of vary it a little bit, but it really helps to be able to kind of predict what they're going to do. And the wind-up for that weapon art helps you to do that because you see them sheath it. Now, it can still come out very quickly, and they can just kind of hold it in the sheath for a bit to throw you off. Most people don't do that, so you pay attention to what they're doing. Okay, he always, slashes it right after he sheaths it. He never holds it. Okay, so as soon as you see that sheath, throw it the parry, because you have to be a little bit predictive with it. Like I said, if there's a little bit of latency and there's a few milliseconds between you and your opponent, then sometimes the timing will be a little bit off. You see me throwing fan daggers here. That's really just to pester these guys, to make sure they don't have any bubbles on or anything like that. And I'd recommend keeping fan daggers with you on most builds, just to be able to do that. Break bubbles, break the aromatic bubbles, break the opaline bubbles, or what's the talisman? The Ritual Shield Talisman gives you 30% extra defense if you're at full health. That actually creates a little bit of a bubble as well. So you can use fan daggers to pop those bubbles and get people's defense down to normal. And that makes it a really handy tool. But the other thing I was going to mention is that you can use the fan daggers, or really anything, but fan daggers are really easy to land, so they're the obvious choice for this. You can use those to kind of test people's latency a little bit. So if you chuck some fan daggers, you kind of wait and see, how long does it take for the damage to actually register, or for it to make the, the little damage sound when you hit them. And if there's a little bit of a gap there, it's like a half second or something, then you know that you've got to parry early, right? And in that case, you can really only parry when you're predicting the attack, although you still might be able to get it if, I don't know, they're using a one-handed Colossal Sword or a one-handed Colossal Weapon or something like that, or they're going for a charged attack, and you've got a really good sense of exactly what the latency is and how long that charged attack takes to come out. So it's just a tool that you can use to help yourself with parrying a little bit and kind of get used to the latency and gauge it, because it might be different a little bit for every person. Now, if you have a decent connection yourself, I find, a lot of people seem to have pretty good connections on their end as well. They are playing in co-op after all, so it must be at least good enough for them to manage that. So I find that it's not usually too bad. In general, it's very hard to parry things on reaction, but you can kind of predict when it's going to happen. This guy's just rolling around like crazy. He definitely should not have that heavy load, but I guess he's got that big shield and he's used to just hide behind that, but that's not what you want to do during an invasion. You definitely don't want to be heavy rolling. I make all kinds of builds, and I've never wanted to make a heavy roll build. Like I've never once thought like, let me make a build that's just got so much armor, and then I just deal with the heavy rolling and make it work. Now that I'm saying it, if I put quick step on a weapon and try to use that a lot, or like Raptor of the Mists, that might actually be kind of fun. Now that I'm saying it out loud, now that I'm actually thinking about it. But just in general, playing through the game, I've never felt like I'm okay with a heavy roll. I just can't stand it. So I don't know how other people do that, but I guess it works for them, and I guess their armor is very high, and they're able to carry pretty much whatever they want, as long as you're not completely overburdened. So, whatever. Here's another example of someone with a bubble there. I missed him with fan daggers, so that first hit with the sword did very little damage. So really, being able to pop that bubble is going to allow you to do a lot more damage with your next hit, and can actually be pretty impactful. This is one of the better spots to invade, I would say. Like, in general, the Shadow Keep, Shadow Tower, Shadow Keep, whatever it's called. Just in general, as long as they're not right in front of the boss door, because that's a horrible place to invade. Honestly, just warp out of there when you invade there. But anywhere through here, there's pretty tough enemies with these Fire Knights. And even if there's no Fire Knights, the little Shadow Horn Scent guys, they'll pester enemies with the Fire Serpent things, and they'll also cast these little heal spells, and you can get healed by them, which is really nice. It's a really nice surprise when it does happen. This is actually the final invasion that I have for you in this video. I'll show you the stats and everything after. But I had a ton of fun with this build. I would highly recommend using the Sword of Night on invasions and learning this true combo. So, like I mentioned, this is a dex build. I already talked about the Sword of Night, but I've got a number of other weapons that I use. It doesn't matter what shield that you use. Anything with Carry and Retaliation will work. And I've got a different mix of dex weapons. Most of them are lightning infused, except for the ones that can't be infused. I've got the Misericord. I don't really use it much. I find I don't really need it. The Smith's Grip daggers are handy at times, just to be able to throw those out. They're very light, too. You can always hold them. Here's the talisman spread that I had for a lot of the invasions, but I used a number of others. So the dagger talisman is one that was very useful. Godfrey's icon can actually boost the power of the Smith's Grip dagger. The Blade of Mercy can be handy if you're parrying a lot, and you can see the stealth talismans at the bottom there. I used those for a little bit. They didn't really come in too handy for me, but maybe you can make them work a little bit better. 80 dexterity is the most important thing, but having a lot of endurance in mind is nice as well. I've got a little intelligence and faith to use the Smith's Grip weapons, as well as Bestial Vitality, and I think there's another weapon I might have been using before that had a faith requirement. I think I was using the Black Dagger at some point, so I could probably respec this a little bit, but that's the build there. Here's a look at the fashion. It's the Nox Monk Altered Hood that you're seeing there. And, of course, that is the Death Knight chest, Oathseeker greaves, and Vulgar Militia gloves.